Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn.
Let's not act like children.
I'm gonna go. You're a lying dog-faced pony shoulder.
Hello.
I was wondering if you're going to try and do it.
I can't do a Biden impression. No.
No, neither of us
I
can
can
do impressions. I want us to get that out of the way. This is
I
not
could
an
do it in. Liz, what are you talking about? You do an insane Chinese impression.
Okay. No, this is not an impression show. We don't do those sorts of things here. This is hard-hitting news analysis from Dummy 1, Dummy 2, here to talk about true no matter who. Vote true no matter who. I can't say it. I'm going Biden mode.
See, that was a little bit of a Biden impression.
It is
right there.
2024.
Mm-hmm. My son's dead, and my other son's a crackhead.
He basically said that during the debate.
Did he? He didn't mention Hunter. Or no, he does. He's like,
Trump
don't.
did.
Yeah, Trump did. Like, well, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Brace Belden, the youngest man in show business, 22 years old, nubile, looking good after the injections and a little bit of the slurp out of me. And I am joined by my co-host,
Liz. Hello, everyone. And we are both joined by, as always, and I'm going to call him this because it's just coming right out, Professor Young Chomsky.
Mm-hmm.
And this is TrueAnon, Special Edition Election Decision 2024.
Now, as listeners of the show might know, that Liz and I are lifelong Democrats.
Yes.
And I think that for me, one of the craziest things about seeing this is like, not only do I love Democrats, I love old men.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
yeah, you're the world's premier old man watcher.
Oh, no, I go in their houses and stuff. I'm not just looking from the outside. I'm in there. I'm touching them.
Yeah.
And this election season should be a buffet of eroticism for me. It's not.
It's not?
No. And I
You're
want to talk
not liking
about
what you're saying. Okay, before we get into it, let's do the kind of, I did listen to the Daily for this, which I don't know if I've ever listened to before, like full on. And then I realized, oh my God, you do a decent impression of the Daily, Brace, when you do it.
We're not an impression show, yet Brace does a decent impression of the Daily.
Well, I'm a flip-flopper. I'm going to do my impression here then, since we're an impression show now.
Go for it.
We're going both ways. But okay, so we had the first debate between Trump and Biden last Thursday on CNN. I think that this could potentially go down as one of the most pivotal debates. I don't know. I'm kind of hedging here, which maybe we can kind of get into later. But I think there's like some people who are trying to compare it with like Obama's poor performance with Romney in 2012 as just kind of like a bad debate. Like people come back from that.
Yeah.
And then there's others that are like, no, this is like Nixon Kennedy level, like disaster zone.
My mind didn't go to either of those places. My mind was with Patain on his trial for treason in like 46, 47, when he was basically like a husk of a man and going like, in the courtroom, like didn't know where he was, thought he was like leading a cavalry charge. That's what it felt like to me. There was a moment when I watched Biden touch his ear really slowly in like two sort of pawing motions. And I was like, he is Patain.
Yeah, he was kind of getting in there a couple times. There's been like right-wing conspiracies that's him, adjusting his mic, his headset. And I'm just like, if that's happening, they're doing a really bad job.
Yeah, I don't think that he was doing that.
Since this performance, if we can call it that, basically every liberal leading media outlet, which is basically all of them, has been calling pretty much unanimously for Biden to step down as the candidate, which is also pretty unprecedented. And as of now, we were just talking about this, but Biden is kind of going into like, he's going monk mode with Dr. Jill, and apparently a cadre of elders, which does beg the question, who's older than him that could be considered an elder? But they are said to be sort of deciding his fate as a candidate. So maybe before we get into that, we could talk a little bit about the debate.
The debate was one of the most incredible, erotically charged, I must say again, shirtless nights of my life.
Did you take off your shirt?
I always do when I get agitated.
Okay.
As you know.
Yeah.
No, I kept it on. I was testing out the new T-shirt, and once again went over like gangbusters. We're gonna make $10 million off this election.
I mean, spoiler alert, soon to be in TrueAnon.com store.
But no, I went to well, you would call him by perhaps a different name or just one word, but I went to Adam Friedland's house and watched it there on his 24-inch TV. And I got to tell you, my only real impression I got from the debate, besides the fact that the impression that every single other person who watched it got, was just that split screen is a really. You know that like within 5 seconds of starting that, the person from the Biden team who made all like the arrangements and the demands was like, fuck, like I knew I missed something, because that was just a bad idea.
Oh, it was so bad for him. Yeah, I kept thinking, like, I was watching when he initially kind of like shuffled out and said hello.
Hello.
It was one of the worst moments, and it was like the first moment.
See, I wrote that off because Trump then also shuffled out and said hello, or he walked out and said hello, but his mic was off. And so I was like, oh, maybe the reason that Biden sounded like he was like Marlon Brando or something is because his mic was like coming on when he was saying that.
I kept thinking of those. Do you remember those Vic Berger videos?
Yeah.
Where they like make it all silent, and then it's just these like really awkward edits of
like
what candidates were saying and mouth.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they did that. Like they accidentally made that with all their weird like no music, no crowd, nobody's talking. Like it actually turned into a Vic Berger video.
Yeah. It was tough to watch, and then I got to be honest. I was hoping something really bad would happen to somebody at some point during the night, and I was not disappointed. I mean, if from the beginning I was like, "Wow, Biden is doing badly," but I couldn't tell because I was with like, I was with podcasters, and so I'm like, maybe these people have preconceived notions about Joe Biden. I myself, of course, am neutral.
Yeah, you should have been with some more undecided voters like yourself.
Yeah, I know. Well, I like to put myself in the lion's den between, MAGA types like Adam and then Democrats like Will. And so I'm like,
Sure.
I'm kind of a Ken Bone in that situation.
Yeah, wearing your red sweater.
Yeah. But I couldn't tell if it was just like, all right, do I just think he's like all fucked up, or like is everyone else seeing this too? And then I did realize shortly after looking at the internet that everyone else was also seeing it.
Well, what's weird is that like I feel like we and plenty of other people have kind of been saying that about Biden for a while now. Like anyone paying attention to like the last, I don't know, at least 3-4 months of public appearances, like videos, and not even just like right-wing edits or whatever, but like any appearances, would see him in the way that he's speaking and be like, I don't think that everything's okay in the house of Biden. Like something's amiss.
Yeah, his wife's being rude to him at home.
No, but it's like one of those moments where you're watching it. I mean, it makes sense where you're sort of like, well, I'm sure they'll find a way to spin this since they do everything else. And yet there was basically like nothing.
Well, as the night dragged on, I realized like because obviously, yeah, I agreed the same thing. I was like, I basically just immediately started thinking like how they're going to play this off. And then it got to the point, and there wasn't a certain thing that did it. I think it might've been, he was trying to like finish a point, and then the moderator was like, you're out of time. And he sort of just like, I think he ended his sentence with an and then just stopped speaking and kind of froze up.
Yeah.
I think at that point I was like, you can't spin this. Like this is a fucking disaster. And I got to be honest, I was thrilled because I don't like Joe Biden. And I like to see somebody who I think is a bad person have a bad night. But at the same time, I did also like, I was wondering, like, if I was in the shoes of one of his advisors, like, how would I try to spin this? And my initial thought was, don't you feel bad for this old man?
Yeah. No, and I think that what's funny is that I was watching it and I did a lot of my, and I want to talk about Trump too, but a lot of my like immediate feelings were this is really uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
Because you were like watching, like to me at least, like maybe we can kind of like wildly and inappropriately speculate about his health issues.
It's not
but
inappropriate. We do that all the time with people on here.
yeah.
With like mental issues, physical issues, sexual issues. I would say
that's our
40%
group chat.
of our
No,
show
no, no.
is that.
Okay, that's true. That's fair enough. But like, it felt like someone who, what I was watching was like perhaps had a lot of, I can't remember what they're called, but like mini strokes, like a series of really mini strokes. And so it was like you could see him like in his head have the ideas and the thoughts,
Yeah.
but he couldn't connect those thoughts to his like body being able to speak them out into the audience or to the moderators and the cameras. And so it was like kind of weirdly heartbreaking to watch, where you're just like watching this. And I don't have any feelings about Joe Biden. Fuck Joe Biden. Fuck the Biden family. I've got I fucking hate these people. But it was like watching this like husk of a like politician, old man, like staring at Father Time, like trying to put these things together and failing like totally miserably live television.
Do you remember a while ago? I don't know what it was, but there was like something, I think it was like on Twitter or Instagram or something, where someone's like, oh, like Peepaw ordered 40 burgers for his birthday and nobody showed up, and it's like an old man with some burgers. It felt like that kind of thing where you're like, oh, it's like, listen, you're at an old folks home, and okay, maybe everyone in there is an Adolf Hitler type because it's like 1990 in Germany. But you're like, you're a pathetic, sad old man. Like, you shouldn't be on stage in front of everybody humiliating yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough to watch. And
it
engenders not a political sympathy, but a very human sympathy where I'm like, don't make people watch this man do these things. And I think one of the things that made it so painful to actually watch, because it really was tough to even just look at him at times. And at one point, I took a picture of Walker, one of my friends I was watching with, and he was just like, his head was in his hands because he couldn't look at Biden because it was like, this is uncomfortable.
It was a fucking car crash. It was watching a car crash.
But it's
like,
he's just sitting there with his slack jaw.
Of how like time comes for all of us too.
Yeah, well, it won't come for me because of some packs I made.
Sure.
But he's just sitting there or standing there slack jawed. And I remember there was a rumor that they wanted them to sit down for the debate.
Yeah.
Trump mentioned, I think, even at the rally we were at. And I was like, dude, he should be lying down and like have an IV in him and like his family like patting his forehead with a sponge.
For Trump, I gotta say, I mean, I don't think that he was like that great either.
No.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like he had one line that was great, but it wasn't like a Trump line. There was something where he's like I can't remember the context, but he's like, we knocked on wood wherever we may have had wood, which is a great
he looked
line.
around for wood, and he knows you can't knock on something that's not wood when you say that. He also said something about the economy was rocking, which I appreciated.
Yeah, that was kind of a Bracism, but like he wasn't. There's a thing in sports, where people say that you kind of like there's the phenomenon of the trap game, where you have an opponent that you don't respect, and so you end up playing down to them, and so you don't bring your A game and then you end up like getting your ass beat or whatever. I don't think that happened, but I do think that Trump was like pretty incoherent as well. Like he kept kind of trailing off too, and not just in his normal Trump ways, but kind of like veering into like other things and not totally finishing sentences and not making a lot of sense. And so what the like end product was completely surreal, because it was like these two old men saying like just shouting incoherent things at each other. And then you had those moderators just sitting and pretending like this was a kind of exercise that meant something, or there was substance to anything that these people were saying. Like none of it was coherent in any way possible.
I took a lot of Trump's like answering every question in a different way, let's say, as a form of, and you're supposed to do this in politics, but you should really do this. And this is a tip for all you listeners out there. If you're ever being interviewed or someone's asking you questions, only answer the questions that you want to answer.
Sure.
And so it's like whenever they'd ask him anything about whatever, he would just turn it to like the border or migrants or
Yeah.
deportations, because I think he realizes that like that's polling like in his favor.
When he knows that people aren't going to ask any real follow-ups. Like the whole thing is such a joke, you know?
Yeah, and like Biden wasn't gonna like be able to like Biden's not nimble enough to like actually argue with him about anything.
Sure.
I think at one point he said like he sucks or something. Like Biden said something just like you're stupid or something like that. I can't or I can't, it was some like very kind of G-rated insult. And Trump said like let's not be childish, you know. And some during some exchange he said that, and I was like, I know that they'd planned that out for like when Biden sort of flutters around and sputters, because it really was like a very subdued. I mean, Trump is also just like getting older, and like he does not have like the kind of neurological decline that that Biden has, because I think Trump is on his he's on his own shit. I think he's on his own sort of spectrum there, and so I don't think we can judge that in exactly the same way. But yeah, he just kind of brought it back. It felt kind of just like a stump speech almost.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. That, you know, but it's not like Biden could come in and like kind of like come back with fighting words. And even when he kind of tried, like remember Trump brought a bow, and Biden turned real nasty in that way. That's kind of like, it wasn't that kind of classic Joe Biden, like the fighter thing that his team always tries to kind of like pitch him as, but it kind of read more like old man getting really angry and a little bit like out of pocket due to his age.
I will say this, Trump should have been like, what year did your son die? Because famously, Joe Biden, even though he brings up Bo's death every fucking day, does not remember what year his son died, which I believe was 2015. The other thing, too, is that Joe also frequently, I think he did this to Mike Preisner when Preisner yelled at him. He always pretends that his son died in Iraq.
I know.
now he seems to like be a little more coherent and like attribute it to him dying because of the burn pits in Iraq, which I'm like,
that's a couple leaps.
It's a couple of leaps, but because didn't he die of like a brain aneurysm or something? Which, you know, certainly Joe Biden has had one or two of in the past
at like age 45.
But yeah, he like got pissed off during that, but like he wasn't really even able to like do it very coherently, you know. Like he was just, it seemed like at a certain point when your brain starts to degrade a little bit, your ability to express yourself especially when you're agitated or angry, becomes very skewed. And oftentimes, like you'll either exaggerate it or not exaggerate it, but like you'll get angry, much angrier than a situation would demand, or angry when a situation doesn't demand it, or it's difficult to control yourself. And I think Biden had a little snap of that a couple of times the other night, but I think that the rest of his health problems may be so severe that he actually physically cannot get that angry because he is breaking down and crumbling. Yeah. Much like for instance, a mummy recently reawakened, but then robbed of the power that gives him eternal life.
Right. Kind of like a lashing out spasm, but it like can't go anywhere.
He can't go anywhere because his joints are locked. This is another thing.
He is very stiff.
He's stiff. The guy is stiff as a motherfucking board, which normally an older man with a lot of power I would be very attracted to. But him, I don't know. We were looking at this footage earlier of him standing there next to Kamala at some event, and he doesn't seem like he can move.
It's the arms.
That seems like a mini stroke thing.
Well, I was saying that it could also be potentially Parkinson's. Now, there's like a type of Parkinson's that's, you know, everyone knows the shakes, but there's also stiffness that you can get. And there was like a commercial that he was in, not a commercial he was in, like a campaign
ad.
Campaign ad.
Yeah.
Not like he was featured in a
Life Alert ad.
Yeah. Well, and there was like, it was weird. It was like his arms were super, super stiff, but then his hands were like loosey-goosey. Like he didn't kind of have control over them. It was very weird. And that, you know, that can sometimes accompany dementia. There's like PDD, Parkinson's disease with dementia, which it could be. I don't know. I mean, I will say that like, I don't think this is just old guy stuff. I think that there's probably some other things going on, and like he's kept so like sequestered basically from all accounts that especially have come out over this past weekend, which we can talk about, but like he's kept like even to White House staff is like not allowed to have access to him in the residence. And he's like has a very tight knit crew that is very protective over him, which to me does not sound like someone who is being completely transparent about whatever's going on with their health.
I agree. I think that detail about like the actual like waiters or butlers or whatever they have at the White House, not just like political staff, but like people who come and bring you, you know, a nice Sprite once in a while. The fact that those people have extremely like the most limited access that any staff have ever had to a president, at least in modern times. I think that does speak to something deeper going on there.
Yeah.
You know, I think what we see is a lot of what I guess you could say in the very general sense, old guy stuff, you know, like he is just like fucked up and old, although he seems much older than his actual age is, which is pretty astounding. You know, I have a lot of both personal experience with Alzheimer's, and then I also, I you know, not to toot my own horn, but I volunteered and then worked at an Alzheimer's clinic in San Francisco for a while. And the thing that actually is tough about it, I mean, generally I worked with more like high functioning people who were just like able to speak and talk, but they just didn't really know where they were. I would say those people were actually like more together, not in the sense that they remember where the fuck they were, but like were able to like speak for like longer periods of time in a somewhat or appearing to be a coherent manner.
Yeah.
I think what I see with Biden a lot, and this sounds so like condescending, which is fine. I would gladly condescend to our billion-year fucking old president, but like it seems like a lot of the behavior he has is like kind of masking, you know, like a lot of the times when people get Alzheimer's or whatever, especially the anger stuff, like they will get really angry when they actually like are confused. And like I think Biden is in general like a lot more confused than we're allowed to see. And there was an interesting like snippet, I think it was from the New York Times, that came out that was like, yeah, people generally aren't allowed access to him after 4 p.m. And it's like, yeah, because he's sundowning. And like sundowning is real. I have very much witnessed sundowning. It is a very real phenomenon where like your neurological issues get worse as the day progresses. And I think that could be maybe the case with Joe Biden.
Well, the thing that's kind of crazy is like, I mean, people have been saying this for a while.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, there was like all of these stories not that long ago, like debunking that this could be a possibility, or that like he was in any kind of cognitive decline. Like even like Chuck Schumer came out or something. He was like, I speak to the president privately, and in private, he's like sharp as a tack. Like, you know, and it's like, well, if he's like that in private, then why is he acting senile in public?
Yeah.
Like, is there some like why would you be doing that? That makes no sense.
Well,
you know,
it also, I think there's one thing that you know, behind all this stuff, like kind of everybody's seen the Emperor Without Clothes the other night, is that like, that really does beg the question of who is in charge then? Like, who is making the day-to-day decisions that the president would, I mean, obviously all presidents have a giant staff that makes most of the decisions or whatever. But like, there are some decisions the president has to make. What is going on? I want to hear a transcript or read a transcript or hear one of those phone calls where he's dressing down Netanyahu. I genuinely am like, does he know what's happening?
I know.
Not that he would have a different political opinion or change policy in any way, but like if I got Joe Biden, like in that when his fucking freaky ass Nancy Reagan wife brought him to the Waffle House that night, and like if I was in there, buying heroin or something, and I went up to him, I was like, Joe Biden, what is going on in Gaza? I don't know if he'd be able to genuinely be able to tell me.
Yeah, but I think a lot of Democrats like are fine with that.
Yeah,
like,
it's like a Feinstein situation.
Well, no, but I think it's like they don't want to see it on TV, but the idea is like, oh yeah, no, there's competent management behind him. Don't worry. Like almost like we voted for the party, not him. We need a stand-in. And everyone kind of silently agreed on this as like, no, we know there'll be like like good management, like a good team behind him. And so long as, they're all there, then everything's fine.
Well,
And
that's what people are really saying when they say like, he may be old, but like he gets stuff done, because the actual what they're saying is he doesn't get anything done because he's being fed baby food like a hot 22-year-old girl's diet, but he is actually fucking like some Anthony Blinken and then like a cadre of nameless vampires are like actually doing everything.
Yeah, definitely. But also, if you're 22 years old and a girl, don't eat baby food.
Why? Just because you have an eating disorder?
So let's talk about the fallout from all of this.
Yeah.
Because immediately, watching CNN, it was fucking funny as hell. They like immediately go to, Anderson Cooper and their whole like round table, which included David Axelrod, a wet David Axelrod, which was very uncomfortable.
My God, the man was soaked. I've been trying to find images of it all day. Actually, that's not true. I tried to find images for 2 seconds when I just Googled David Axelrod wet and then gave up.
You will not like what comes up when you.
Well, you know what? My reflection in the goddamn screen, it was Bryce Belden wet. But I was astounded with how moist Axelrod was, and then I realized that I believe they were actually in a weird outside studio, because I don't think they were allowed in the building.
It was so weird. It was like an NBA Finals where they make them like they have to all sit outside and comment outside with the crowd, but there was no crowd.
Axelrod for some reason was just sitting in the rain spot or something, but it was crazy because you had Van Jones there,
speaking from the heart.
It was, Van Jones is probably my favorite Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
I think because he's like me,
Bespectacled.
obviously, just bespectacled, a brother, but also used to believe in a political philosophy espoused by the People's Republic of China for a number of very successful years. And then, like me, is now just a centrist Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not
centralist.
anything.
Centralist.
I just believe in politics. Is that, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying there?
Yeah, capital P
politics and lowercase. But like, even he was like, it was funny because I can't remember what he said, but he said some like rhyming thing that I'm like, I know you fucking thought of this yesterday, and you were like, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to sound so smart.
He was fucking practicing in his shower.
Yes. Yeah. And
like all great podcasters and media people do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know how many times I said, I'm Brace in the bath. But he was talking about Joe Biden like it was a horse that broke its leg.
I mean, they kind of were. I mean, it was wild because, like I said, you're watching this and you're like, how are they going to fucking spin this? Before they've been just denying it. And everyone immediately was like, this is an unmitigated disaster. I've been getting a billion text messages a second with everyone panicking. Democratic insiders don't know what to do. He can't be the candidate. And then this became the line almost immediately across the board. Like even Rachel Maddow was fucking saying this, which is crazy.
The New York Crimes editorial board came out and said it.
Yes. And it's funny because I think Ezra Klein had an op-ed before the State of the Union where he was like, Joe Biden shouldn't be the candidate. And everyone got very mad at him. And then he like recanted. And now every op-ed, the next day, every opinion columnist, the New York Times was like, it's time for Joe to leave. If he's a true patriot, he's got to go. Joe must go to save the Republic or whatever. I did not read them, but I get the idea.
I get the gist.
But everyone, almost as if it was coordinated, which I'm not sure if I believe that, but everyone had the same fucking lines, which was like panic, 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 panic.
Well, I think to your point about coordination there, I think what my impression of how these things work is like sometimes, there's literal, like they send out the actual say these words. I think a lot of it though is just like people see which way the wind is blowing.
Absolutely.
And like they got to blow with it.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't a spin. And I think really a lot of what came out of that was just like of prominent journalists or like opinion makers or whatever seeing what happened at the debate, immediately panicking, because I think these people were in a panic. Like Van Jones, Anderson Cooper, all these people, they're not disinterested, like, they're not true neutral journalists like you and I, political journalists, but only in this instance. In the rest of the instances of episodes that we do, we are non-actionable comedians and nothing what we say is true. But they are actually freaked out because they want Joe Biden to be president more. And I think there was an initial wave of panic. I think that's going to get rolled back, although who knows? I mean, it's today. I feel like I saw, because just Joe went to a little rally after, well, not a rally, but he went to like a watch party afterwards, and like he gave like a little bit of like a fiery oratory thing, fiery as Joe Biden could get. So like he briefly raised his voice, but it was like Jill Biden kind of leading the charge.
I know,
and
Dr. Jill.
Interesting, Dr. Jill.
Yeah.
Perhaps we are entering a sort of Nancy Reagan style situation.
These boots were made for walking.
Exactly. And I think that I'm like, what if Jill's like, Joe, you need to do it?
Well, there have been, reports in like places like Axios and Politico basically saying that it's Ron Klain and Dr. Jill and like two other aides that I'm not going to remember the name of, that are the inner circle, that are kind of like protecting him, pushing him, both and whichever way. So could be, I don't know. I think that I think your point about everyone just sort of trying to see like which way the wind is blowing and trying to get ahead of it is spot on.
Yeah.
And I do agree with you that they're going to try and kind of roll back some of this initial panic. But I think the problem is that like the Biden people are kind of in a hole now, because there's not another debate until September, right? And there's the convention in August, but I don't know how you change perception really about any of this. Like, you kind of hope that no one was watching, which like I don't really think in the grand scheme like people were. The people that were are the people that write the New York op-eds or do the special podcasts or whatever, or are on Twitter being political junkies talking about it. But they're the people that set the tone for the media stories that keep getting published, that create the kind of mass narratives.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
like you need something to change the story. But like Joe Biden like coming out, like you're saying, and doing some speech with Dr. Jill isn't going to do it.
Well, no, because I think also, to your point about people not watching. I have no idea what the numbers were, but like it's a fucking debate. I'm sure it wasn't.
Also, these are two historically unpopular candidates. Like no one wants to see them.
But much of, I think it shouldn't be discounted how much of social media now is just like short form clip, like farming.
Yes.
And like, I think a lot of people will see a lot of clips from that debate.
Yes.
And like, there's not a lot you can get out of that where Joe Biden doesn't look like he's patiently awaiting or forgot he was waiting for a blowjob, to give a blowjob because he was waiting so long.
Yeah. I think too, like just kind of, I'm just so interested in how people are kind of like breaking down what's happening, and the idea that there's this sort of grand plan unfolding with the DNC I've seen some kind of people kind of popping up, and I want to talk about that for a second. But like the idea that this is sort of like a controlled chaos op even to replace the candidate. And I think that like I keep using this word political junkie, but I think it's like just the best description. It's just the easiest, but like, I think that, for this type of person, like debates are kind of like big fight night, where you have like your popcorn and you have your watch party and you're tuning into what everyone is saying and you're looking for all the big punches and you're like so excited and you're talking and you're chatting and you're, whatever. And part of the like big Democrat meltdown about what everyone watched was that like Biden couldn't even deliver on that level of theater. Like it was like so like he couldn't even put on a show. Like you knew that he was like a husk of a candidate. You knew he was a super old man, but he couldn't even like he was so impotent on the level of like just the performance that everyone was sort of left with like nothing to work with. Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, I think, and this is the thing that's like gotten a lot of attention, and so I'm sure most listeners know this, but like the layup that he had about abortion, where he just redirected it to something that I guess he would be weak on, which is the border.
Yeah. And brother sister rape.
And Trump going to the funeral. It was just
very weird.
It was tough.
It was
see.
Incoherent.
It was incoherent. Yeah, it was complete incoherence.
Rambling
I think
by
like
no man.
I think the thing is that I agree. I everyone knows he's old as fuck. The reason this debate was now, from what I understand, is to prove that he can talk pretty someday.
Yeah, Joe Biden talk pretty someday.
Even by those metrics, it was just like, I mean, but just by those metrics, it was a fucking disaster. So like, you set your own funky ass up for this, and your funky ass is taking the fall.
Yeah. But what's funny is that like now that this is all chaos and everyone's like, well, what will happen? What will happen? You know, they've got to replace him. They've got to replace him. Like, I think that kind of like theorizing and game theory shit is like stuff that political junkies love.
Yeah.
You know? And so in a weird way, like the biggest issue that the Democrats were facing going into this was that nobody cared. Right?
Yeah.
That there was like no enthusiasm. That it's like, it's not just the candidate, but everyone is just sort of like, we've talked about this, that there's just this sort of like, no one's really that passionate about any of this and sort of over it. And it's just like, you're not going to see the kind of like pussy hat mania of 2016 or even like the chaos of 2020 and with the contested primary and everything and COVID, like you're just not going to see it, you know? And this has been a big problem for the Democrats who need turnout to go up. But like in this weird way, all of these stories are sort of getting the people who are the political junkies who care about this shit more invested in this sort of like crazed theater of the election.
Well, yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
We're doing a special episode on it right now.
Yeah, I mean, no, absolutely. But it's like, in a way, it's sort of like, and this is kind of why I'm with you, that I would be surprised if they replace Biden at all. Like, in a way, it's getting people to kind of keep talking and get invested in the machinations of the Democratic Party.
He should act even older.
Maybe get crazy, do something crazy. What is it? You always have that theory about like getting press. You just got to do something crazy.
And it's true. Look, believe me, it's true. Biden is now all over the news, which I guess he generally is because he's the president, but he's all over the news in a slightly different way. Mm-hmm. And sometimes bad press is actually good press. If you think about it. I don't think press that's like urging you to not do the job that you have right now in very strong terms from people who are your staunchest political allies is necessarily what I would call like great press, but people are talking, aren't they? I mean, my view is this. In general, I think that there's like in America, less so than Europe, but there's a rightward shift everywhere in sort of like a pendulum kind of thing from like the past 8 years. But like people are like there's a, I mean, again, in Europe, this is almost more exaggerated than it is here, but there's like a rightward shift in both politics, but in general in the culture. And I think that it's like, there is less of the panic that Biden would normally be able to gin up available to him. There aren't reserves of that. Maybe by being really old and feeble and freaked out, he can get people being like, actually, we really need a strong, like he can sort of like reabsorb disaffected Democrats.
I mean, I kind of think that.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like people who are like, fuck, like I wasn't going to vote for Joe Biden because of the genocide or whatever reasons people have, or just because I don't care or whatever. Got so mad at his bad debate performance and how old he is. And they're like, fuck, like we have to replace him. And then when he doesn't get replaced, be like, well, fuck, like I've ginned myself up into like being so passionate about this that I guess I'm going to vote for him anyways, but then grumble about it.
Yes. I mean, because I think that's totally it. Like Democrats, there's like erstwhile Democrats, there's ones with wandering eyes over the past like 4 years. And then there's ones that are like just kind of like over it, or like are so don't want to have to deal with Trump, but like also don't want to have to like go pussy hat themselves out in the streets or whatever. You know what I mean? And everyone is looking for basically permission to vote and get this whole thing over with.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. And in a weird way, having like actual campaign drama is going to get people, like you say, it's gonna like enable them to get it up enough in order for this lead up into November.
Yeah. And I want to reiterate what I said on the last episode we put out. If you are not going to vote for president, you need to be making as many entrepreneurial moves during this election as possible.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. Sell your vote like they do in some countries. Sell whatever you have. Sell things to the fans of either of these candidates or RFK fans. Sell fucking whatever you can. But you need to go into 2025. When January 6th comes along, I don't want you anywhere near the White House. I want you in the Bahamas, TrueAnon listeners. I want you nearing retirement. Because the time is, if Biden gets any older before this convention happens, I'm telling you, stocks in political sales are going way up. They had Gavin Newsom, close personal friend of the show, come out immediately after the CNN thing and basically just like they like trotted him out and deny that he was going to run for president.
Yeah.
You know that he's like in the back of his head is like, I hope he dies. Yeah, I hope he dies before the convention. I have no idea what happens. I don't follow politics. I'm a completely neutral, nonpartisan, what do you call it? A professional esports player. Like I don't have anything to do with like politics or anything like that. I can recognize when someone's old. And my view is that Biden should, they were doing the Dark Brandon thing. And in fact, they were selling, people might have saw this on Twitter, but they were selling Joe Biden Dark Brandon branded canned water for like $4.90. They're called debate prep juice prior to the debate. I'll say this.
I think that you don't want to take that.
I was severely addicted to both synthetic and natural opioids for many years and had trials and tribulations relating to that. The shit that they're packing this fucking water with must be so good. They should drug test Brandon because I think that he is on like fentanyl lollipops.
What if like that was him clean? That's
clean.
the whole thing. They were like, shit, we don't know if we're going to get spot tested by the Trump people because they're morons. Yeah. And so they were like, we're just going to fucking go natty, run him out, just as God made him. And like, this is what we got.
Well, my thing is, what if that is him juiced? Like Trump was making them jokes at the fucking Philadelphia rally. Oh, he's getting a shot in the ass. And I was like, I think he probably kind of is going to get a shot in the ass.
Well, it's like he did kind of like during it. It's like he did kind of his like
peaked?
Well, I would say attention and like ability sort of like went up and down throughout the debate. And there were moments where I think that was one of the like spin lines afterwards where they're like, it was a slow start, but a great finish. And I was like,
not
the finish
true.
was
the
terrible.
Finish was horrible.
The finish was like when someone just like trails off and it was like an ellipsis was the finish. It was very awkward ending.
Difficult. Many ellipsis scenes during Biden's ramblings.
I will say I do hope for the sake of the summer that they keep this all going. I say more Biden TV appearances.
Yes.
I think he needs to be out front and center as much as possible. We need to see more of him. Let's see what he's got.
Let's make him do Trump danced.
Yeah.
When we saw him. I want to see Biden dance.
The next debate, first of all, they should have a week of debates.
Yeah.
Make them do this back to back, but every night is just about golf.
Yes. Well, yeah. Does Biden even play golf? There was he got kind of heated during that.
I mean, I'm sure he tried, but it was fun. Trump the next day was like still going off about the handicap. And he was like, he took some golfs. He was on some course. He took a big swing. His swing is fine. Maybe that helps with.
What do you know about swings?
I know a little bit about swings. Okay. maybe some of Trump's good health is thanks to his very open hips, because golf is, of course, all in the hips. But he was like still going off. He's like, Joe Biden couldn't do that. Bet you Joe Biden couldn't do that. He can't do that. Liar. He can't do that. Like going off. And I'm like, I can't believe that CNN unmuted Trump so that he could say that Biden was lying about his handicap.
Good. Well, Biden is handicapped, like severely handicapped.
That's how they should spin it. Why is Trump yelling about Biden's handicap?
I did see one ableism. I haven't really been on the internet much this weekend, but I saw one ableism take on it. And the thing is though, like you gotta like zoom out and focus. Is us making, like Democrats like myself, making Joe Biden be president by voting for him and donating, I'm going to say about 50% of my income to him illegally through straw donors like Sean McCarthy or Sean. No, sorry, Sean McKelvey. My God. I hope, no, keep it in. Sean, if you're listening to this, I don't know which one am I talking to?
Sean McKelvey, if you're listening to this, please call us back.
Fuck it. No, I'll say it. I kick it with Sean McCarthy and Sean McKelvey basically every Friday. Devil's threesome, except there's no devil involved. All three of us are angels. But I love Joe Biden. And I do think that he maybe could not swing a golf club. Physically, he can't do that. I think he might die at some point. Like that became a real possibility for me. I thought he might die when I watched the debate. But I feel like what they should do is they should rebrand him. Dark Brandon I have many problems with that. They should rebrand him as like a sort of, do you know what a lich is, Liz?
Yes, it's your favorite.
Like a lich, but like an undead sort of like mastermind where like, yes, he may be old and creaky from many years living upon perched in a castle perched upon a cliff, but like his undead minions and hordes actually do have like great power in Transylvania.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he might be old as fuck, but he made it pact with the devil. He'll live forever at like, he's choosing not to drink blood because he doesn't want to take a human life. He drinks rat blood.
And he doesn't want Kamala to be president.
He doesn't want a WOC in the White House, which let's talk about that because I want nothing more than a WOC, one WOC in that motherfucking WH. Kamala is completely absent.
I know.
I think she did give us like little talk.
They had her on the after shows. She was doing her thing. A lot of people have come forward and said now it's time for Kamala, and then of course a lot of other people have come forward and been like, "Are you out of your fucking mind? You don't remember who she is?"
Well, Biden probably doesn't either.
Yeah, fair enough. You know what? I welcome every
race.
No, every candidate. I think there should be. I think they should all throw their hats in and let's see what happens.
I'll say this. I keep saying I'll say this, but that's because I'm kind of hungry and I tend to repeat myself when that is the case. I'm throwing my motherfucking hat in. If it's a contested convention, I don't really know what that means. But if it's a contested convention, if shit gets crazy up on the delegate floor, which I don't think it will, but maybe it will.
The only way it can is if Biden steps down.
Put me in there. I'll do something you would never expect.
Keep your pants on.
I am not wearing any because we are recording this one digitally. And I have my camera off because Liz just does this thing where she squints at a body part of mine when we're on video chat. I'm not looking. I'm looking at something else on the screen. I'm looking at something else on the screen.
Well, you know what? That is a possibility because we will be at the convention.
We will be at the convention
might be able to nominate you from the floor if you are able to whip up enough votes in the days leading up to it.
I think I can get in. I just think I can. I think I can. Not like in the presidency, but I think I can get in the DNC.
You can outsmart the Secret Service.
I look like all the other people that are going, right?
Just get someone else's credentials. Why not?
Yeah. Like there's got to be a guy who's like, I'll say it, kind of dumpy, has glasses, does a podcast, lives in Brooklyn. Those people will be there. And I'm going to take their, maybe I'll kill somebody. No, actually, I will not do that. Secret Service. Actually, take that out or just bleep it. All right. Well, let's shut this down maybe.
Yeah, well, we will be back with more updates as they roll in. Vote True No Matter Who, 2024 TrueAnon election coverage. Over and out. I'm Liz.
My name is Brace. We are joined, of course, by producer Young Chomsky, and the podcast is called TrueAnon.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein.